Welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping you to better understand your horse to provide positive solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
This is our last podcast for 2024. Not our very last one, of course, but just last one for this year. But our very first podcast on our new property, Skylark, set in the hills of Mount Buffalo. While we've been moving and you've been teaching and moving, Mark, your online members have shared some of your comments. Jane has written in to say thank you for the reminder about long reining, which was in one of our recent podcasts, and how beneficial it is to developing confidence. I've been working on leading with my Arab gelding, and it's done wonders to make him less anxious around and over us and build our trust. I watched your long reining videos on the membership, which reminded me of rope handling and properly introducing long reining to the horse. I now have something interesting to fill the winter months with my horses here in Wisconsin, USA. Thank you, Mark.
That's wonderful. Now, long run is one of those safe things that you can do with your horse. And on the last particular clinic, there was a couple of people that I said, turn your horse into a cart horse and then it'll be safe to ride. So what I meant was, instead of going out and risking your life on the horse's back, just long rein it until it can go out and be very safe and soft, and then take it back and ride it in the yards for a little bit. So certainly a good thing, long reining.
And Carolyn writes, I'm new to your subscription. The long videos offer a greater insight into the process of teaching the horse and seeing all the things that naturally crop up in a training session. Your shorter videos help to clarify what you're looking for. I love the analogy to yoga. Thank you for sharing your insights. They're a breath of fresh air in the horsemanship world and make so much sense.
Oh, that's wonderful. I never thought I'd have such a big influence and an impact, but it's nice to know that we're helping everyone everywhere, all over.
And that support, Mark, is going to continue right now, today, as you answer some very specific horse training questions related to older horses that have had years of experience under them, and I think will be quite interesting for lots of you listeners out there. You're going to shed some light and solutions as always. In this today, we're going to cover a horse that gets anxious in the arena but is fine riding in a forest, a horse that can't wait quietly in a trailer, a 16-year-old working horse who now fights the bit and is only settled on a loose rein, and a 10-year-old who's struggling in the backup. So, Mark, let's start with that 16-year-old horse. And this is a question that comes from Tracy in Australia. So she's got a stock horse, which is just sort of a standard Australian breed, who's done mustering, feedlot riding, and riding around the farm. He's become matey and nervous out on his own. He fights contact. He's only happy in a loose rein. He goes out okay, but then he wants to race home. What she'd like to know is it worth starting from scratch with him, with the challenge perhaps doing groundwork, etc., to build trust and leadership? Thanks.
It's not always starting from scratch, like, restarting a horse completely, but there are certain foundations and fundamentals you really want to sort of work on. Like when I have horses at clinics that are suffering, and like older ones that are suffering from separation anxiety, I go through all the things that I can control, or the basic things that I'm going to need to use that I can control. I also look at how connected the horse is or disconnected. So is the horse in a good mindset? Is it aware of us, aware of itself when we're around it in general? Is it soft? Or does it hang on to strong thoughts? And by the sounds of it, in general, it probably hangs on to strong thoughts and is not very interruptible or adjustable in its thoughts. So, that's something that you'd go back and have a look at from the scratches. Can I interrupt its thought on the ground? Can I have it sort of standing present and soft and not kind of always looking off into the distance or looking for where the other horses are? So there's a fair bit of that and gaining that connection back with you. But most of the horses that suffer from a lot of separation anxiety, they've got anxiety in general. So by the sounds of it, the reins are causing a lot of trouble. So if the horse is grabbing the bit and quite anxious and braced in the reins, then that causes a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety obviously is going to make it more needy, which more needy means where are my friends? I need to be with my friends. I don't feel safe out here. So you wouldn't even work on graded exposure away from your friends, like going out a little bit and coming back. You'd work on getting the reins soft. So when you get to the under saddle stage of riding, you sort of say, okay, when I pick up a left rein, I want you to, follow the left rein, let go of that right thought and soften into that left rein, and same with the right rein, same with the backup. Get the backup happening really nicely so the horse is thinking backwards, walking backwards, and feeling generally good in the reins. And that can start even on leading on the ground, just get the leading and all the brace out of the horse so it's really comfortable with leading and then leading in the reins when you're riding. And then how does it feel about your legs? When you squeeze it, does it just move forward softly, or is it quite anxious and tight in the rib cage, or you can't touch it with your legs at all because it's too forward? All those things I'd look at, and that's where you kind of identify the problems, and then you work out, how much I need to work on those areas to help. But when the horse is soft and it follows the reins properly, then when it has a bit of a thought over there, whether it be something that it's scared of or its mates are running around in the paddock, then you can pick up a rein and it automatically thinks in a new direction. So you can actually manage the anxiety in the horse instead of it just anxiety stacking. It's a very interruptible, so you can sort of get it to let go of the anxiety as it comes into it. So yeah, that's the stuff I work on until all the things I can control. Not all of them, left rein, right rein, back up, legs. Really, what do maybe can it follow the left rein and open up its shoulders? Can it do a hindquarter yield? You don't have to do all the movements in the reins, but as long as the horse is very comfortable in those things, and then once the horse is comfortable in a safe environment, then you start to ride it out and ride it back to its mates, and only go out so far before it gets too anxious, and then you take it home and then take it out and then take it home. But when the horse is comfortable with you and all your tools, you'll find that separation anxiety is a lot better.
So can I pull you up on a couple of things then? In that answer, you mentioned there that you sort of work on the rein work and getting comfortable in the reins. Does that start off with the leading on the ground? And also, would you be riding him in the bit still, or would you be changing to something else just to eliminate the bit, just to make it more clearer, or it depends?
Yeah, so for the two answers there would be most definitely leading is one of the keys to good riding and reinsmanship, because a lot of horses that don't lead well don't steer well. So because the lead rope contacts the head, the reins contact the head, and then that directs the horse's thoughts and inspires them to sort of search and do things. Then the better the leading on the ground, and the more flow and control you have on the ground, the easier that is to sort of do it from under saddle, because the horse's automatic response to head pressure is to soften and search and be adjustable in its mind and thoughts. So yes, definitely lots of good quality leading. Get all the brace out of the horse, get the horse leading soft, lowering its head, raising its head, doing in the hindquarter yield, following an open rein, things like that. You can do all that on the ground. And then in the riding side of it, if the horse has had a lot of trauma in the bit and it's getting really chewy and grabby on the bit, and I want to do good reinsmanship and hold onto the horse without causing any pain, then I'll tend to go to a side pull, just a bitless bridle. And then I'll kind of, I can hold the back up, or I can hold a bend till the horse relaxes the hindquarter and thinks into a rein longer without causing any pain. And then I can get it nice and supple in the side pull, and then later on, if you want to introduce a bit back into it. But if the bit has been a trigger that's causing a lot of tension, you can go to another a tool and create like have a new slate in a sense, like start on a new slate. And but you just got to be careful that if your horse hasn't been ridden out in a side pull, you got to do have a safe arena that you're riding in, and make sure your horse is getting soft and is comfortable in the new device that you're going to use. But the device that I want to use is something I can create the friction, create a hold on a horse, but not cause pain, and take away the device that was essentially a trigger that the horses had some bad treatment with, which by the sounds of your horses to the bit.
And how much of that rein, just sticking with the rein work, how much of it is down to what you're doing with the reins? So, presumably you want to be showing this horse a new way that offers a little bit of release of that anxiety. So there's guidance on the membership of how to use reins in a way that helps release anxiety. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, A lot of all the reinsmanship on the website is about the horse thinking and balancing with the reins. It's not it's all about putting the horse together in the reins instead of taking them out of balance. So instead of doing lots of flexion and then kicking the horse to get it to go, it's all about how the horse leads and balances through the reins and stays comfortable in the reins, and also it's designed to sort of encourage people to show them how to get the horses hold the reins long enough to let go of those strong thoughts and the horse be truly connected.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. It's from Jo from the UK, and she has a 10-year-old horse working on the backup. He's very slow and sticky, and he will hold his head high. The moment where his head is down, she finds him very heavy in the reins. His head's almost on the floor, and the footfall feels a little better. She's tried sliding her legs backwards with no rein contact, and he will more willingly walk back, but again his head is high. So she's riding in bitless, and she's in an English saddle. She is wondering which method should she be pursuing. Is there something she should be thinking about with regards to her body position? She does sort of comment that he is quite weak behind the saddle, and he does have tight hamstrings.
Okay, so like a lot of horses, I just last clinic, every clinic just about, I have a lot of horses come to the clinic, and they're in a not a so great mindset either. They're like, some of them are quite gazy, quite bracy, quite defensive to pressure, and some aren't defensive in a sort of a crazy looking way. They're more defensive just in a bracy way, where they kind of, as soon as you pick up pressure, their muscles are tight, and they generally just kind of shut out the pressure and just kind of grudge along or trudge along. And it's very hard to get them sort of nicely mobile and thinking backwards. In relation to backing and getting a soft back up, it's not really sort of, changing your seat. As long as you sit light on your horse and you sit in the middle, you're not really going to get in the way of your horse. The biggest thing is just how they follow the feel backwards, usually to the halter pressure and then to the rein pressure. Legs are probably helping with, I guess, a bit of, energy, where the horse is kind of getting a bit of energy and backing up, and maybe that's helping the desire to back up. So that's where legs are probably coming into play. But all in all, it still sounds like the horse is leaning against the reins and kind of sleepy in the reins. So I would make a point of, there's two things more than two, but there's two things I'm thinking of right now. One of them is, can you get the horse to back up from its eyes? So there's some proprioception lessons that I do, or awareness and proprioception lessons that I do online, and you'll see some videos of it online that I do at clinics. And it's where I kind of put a stimulant in front of the horse and see how well it can sort of move away from it in reverse and think backwards. So you're not attacking it and keeping on coming at it. You're just shaking something in front of the horse like a flag or a bag on a stick, and the horse either freezes and just goes, I can't do anything about it, or it moves backwards. Now, what that does is it gets the horse to make a good choice to go, oh, there's something there, I need to think backwards and move away from that. So they choose reverse just through their eyes. And if you're walking around down the paddock and you stop and you back up a bit, or you go over there or you go over here, you try and set it up so the horse gives you some space in reverse, and then you can go through and go somewhere else. Not by hunting, just by walking in a direction that they have to give you a little bit of space so you can walk through over there, or so you can back up over here. And you make it very, like, back up is just part of the language. We back up here and go over there, and we might back up here and go over there. And so the horse is constantly going from forwards to reverse. So it becomes, the adjustability of the mind becomes a lot more soft and available. And then, when you catch your horse in the paddock, you might, I don't know where your stable is in relation to where you saddle your horse, but if you might have 200 meters, so you might turn around, back your horse for 10 meters, and then walk it out a little bit, and then back it for another 5 meters, and then walk it out a little bit, and make backup just part of the conversation that you're having all the time. So the horse starts to go, oh, this is something that I do, and I'm getting very comfortable with, and that's just on the ground. If your horse is a sleepy horse that sleeps on that pressure when you ask it to back up, then I'd give it kind of a bit of a firm push, and then loosen, and then come in soft again and say, now would you like to follow the feel? If you go on a steady kind of increasing incrementally pressure, the horse sometimes just kind of starts to dull and get heavy on number 5 as you're just trudging back with it. So when I feel them lean and go to sleep, I give them, like, as I say, a shove, like it's a bit of a quick shove, and they go, oh, and they wake up a little bit, and then I say, now try again and follow that. until they're kind of backing and thinking backwards. So what you want to see the eyes kind of moving and going back a little bit, like they're processing what's behind the ears, flicking back, and then thinking backwards until they feel like they're floating and carrying the movement. Some horses you can back all day long and they'll never improve because there's certain, conformational things that they need to be, backup needs to be developed in a certain way. For yours, I'm not going to go, I could be going down a rabbit warren if I try to sort of explain some of that. But I think mainly for your horse, just make sure backup is something you're doing all the time just for the sake of it, and then when you're out riding, you go, oh, I overshot that turn. I might back up 3 steps and then go over there. And then, oh, geez, I'm silly. I just overshot another turn there. I should have turned left 5 meters ago. I better back up 5 meters and take that turn. So when you're out on trail rides and everything like that, you're constantly using that backup as part of a real thing to go places. So it becomes just part of life and easy for the horse to sort of, take on board, and it just develops, a nice even backup so that they're just as happily walking forward as they are backing up, and without any difference in the feelings and the balance.
And do you worry about the head position when you're backing up? How much attention do you pay to that at the beginning?
Well, the head position sounds like I pick up a horse's head to start with, because some of them bury down and then they bury and push off their front feet. And as the question sort of said, the head position going down is creating a heavier back up, but she's also said that the feet are picking up a bit better. So sometimes the feet pick up worse when the head goes down because they just start to put the weight on their front and push off. Bringing the head up sometimes gets them up and a bit awake and backs them, but then they can hollow out a little bit. But if the idea is you get the feet moving and the thought moving, so the thought's moving the feet, you get a bit more mobility in the back up, and what you do is you get a kind of a good back up, and as you loosen, the horse will have a bit of flow in the back up, instead of just freezing as soon as you loosen the reins, and the head will start to come down again. And what usually happens when the horse finds a soft back up and good mobility, the head finds a natural kind of position, but I wouldn't be forcing the head down. If the head goes down, still work on the feet going backwards. But if you notice the feet slow down as the head goes down, then I'd pick it up and say, now back and get the feet moving. So I'm looking at mobility, thinking backwards, and then the head position is something the horse finds. And that's when, they start to pick up their body and back up properly.
Okay. Hope that helps, Joe. Next question is from Rhonda in New Zealand. She has a mare who's reasonably relaxed in the forest, but very anxious in an arena. She doesn't get to ride in an arena very often, but she'd like your thoughts on what's happening. She will go nicely in all different walk speeds, turning and backing softly, but immediately on trotting, she'll raise her head and neck and become tight. So she's choosing to only do a few steps and then come back to a walk and repeat. In the past, she would have just got on with it, pushed through it, but she's thinking now that she needs to deal with things at a quieter pace. She has found that figure of eights help, but she's also noticing that feels forced, as though she's just stopping her mare from thinking about her surroundings. She'd love your thoughts on what she's doing.
Okay, so with transitions and forward transitions, there's 2 angles that you can take. So, if you go on YouTube and you go on, and I've learnt the same thing as over the years of riding hotter horses, that you get good at riding horses down. What I mean riding down is that you let the horse go into a trot, and it wasn't a very good transition, but when the horse is all tied in the trot, you have a way of turning or picking up the rein that gets the horse to soften and maybe let go of a strong thought and relax a little bit, and then they kind of might stretch and trot out. But that's all good and well doing that, and you have to know how to ride a horse down if a horse does get up a bit on you, because you have to be able to quieten and relax them in the reins. But you don't want to be doing that if the legs cause the horse to worry. So if the legs cause the horse to worry, so when you ask the horse into a trot, the horse goes, oh, I really don't like ribcage pressure and I rush a bit. Then you're wasting all your good rein work because the legs are causing the anxiety. So you're saying, I'm going to use my legs to cause anxiety, then I'm going to use my reins to fix it. So that wouldn't be productive. As I say, you still need to be able to use the reins correctly and productively to get a horse to ride and come down and let go of a strong thought. But you don't want to be always allowing the legs to worry the horse and fixing it with the reins, because then you're just fighting against each other. Your two tools are fighting against each other. So if the horse is completely comfortable with the legs and there's another underlying anxiety that's causing it to destinate, then, you know, what you say about riding a figure of eight, if the horse is rushing and thinking about everything, it's not thinking about everything, it's thinking about everything in a more paranoid way. So basically, you're allowed to get a horse to stop thinking about everything like that and say, let go of a thought in a turn. But instead of doing figure of eights, I'd say when my horse rushes, I'd pick up a rein and say, let go of that thought over there. And when the horse flicks an ear, turns and relaxes a little bit into a turn, then I loosen and say, there it is. And it might soften the trot a bit, and then it hollows out and speeds up, and then I'd pick up a rein and I'd lift it and I'd open it a bit maybe and just get that horse to kind of turn a little bit and let go of a thought and then relax a little bit. So I just ride the thoughts. When there's a strong thought, I pick up the rein. The horse kind of softens, lets go of that thought, and then until they loosen and they trot and they're thinking about things, but they're not just thinking about things in the far distance that's pulling them away fast. So that's how I'd ride that. And then, you know, you're not micromanaging, and you're not sort of just because the horse is not thinking about everything in a paranoid way, it's not a bad thing. They'll start to think about everything in a soft way, which means they'll trot softly and think. But that's one sort of, you know, way of looking at it. The other way, which I think I'd be addressing first, is how good is the horse to your legs? So in a walk transition, get your horse in the slowest walk till it nearly stalls, put the feel of a squeeze on it, and you should be able to incrementally get it to walk a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, until it gets to a kind of very fast walk, or its fastest walk, and there shouldn't be any anxiety, shouldn't be any tension in the legs, and it should be very easy and soft to squeeze it up to these little you know, incremental changes in the walk, and then you should be able to slow it down and loosen the reins at any part in the walk, and the horse will stay in that walk, whatever you've loosened the rein to. If you can't do that, the horse is creeping up all the time, and it's kind of got strong forward thoughts, so it's actually like it's kind of like getting away on you even in the walk to get to the fastest walk. So go and practice the walk until you can drop the horse on a loose rein at any speed in the walk, and it'll stay at that walk. And also from those speeds, you can squeeze them up to the fastest walk without any worry, without the horse hollowing out and putting its head up in the air. And then I think you might find some problems in the legs and the ribs where your horse has anxiety to the rib cage pressure. If you find that, then keep doing what I've just said in the walk until the horse is very comfortable with the legs. If it's a really sensitive horse, you might want to go back and look at some of the belly roping videos where I get the horses to lead softly to rib cage pressure, so they're very comfortable with rib cage pressure. Once you've got the walk going well to the legs, then you just walk the horse as fast as it can walk, and then just gently, when it starts to think trot, not trot, you'll watch them. They'll start to think trot. They get that little bit of an amble where they want to trot. And as they do that, you just back off, and if they want to fall into the trot, they can. If they don't, they don't. But if they look really anxious and they're going to pop into trot, you take the legs off and say, no, you're not ready to trot yet. And then you walk up the walk again until when they hit that sort of point between the fast walk and the trot, they'll go, oh, I feel like trotting softly. And usually at that point, you just let them find their soft trot. And that's how you fix the anxiety to the legs. So then at least if the horse was anxious to the legs, you're not using your reins 24/7 to fix a problem that you created with your own legs, as I said before. So yeah, look at those two things and then, you know, see where you get to.
So that, what you were just describing, is on quite a few videos on the membership to Rhonda. So if you look at anxious horses, riding a hot horse down, and look at transitions, there are several videos where Mark's working specifically on that topic, where he does change the transition speed. And it is really interesting to see the change in the horses from the beginning to the end of those lessons. So Mark, is there a reason though why the horse would be obviously less anxious in the forest to the arena?
I'll just clutch at a few ideas. In the forest, some horses are very stimulated, like open country versus tight country. What I mean by tight country is there's a lot of things tight. It's all in front of you. Open country, everything's open and far away. So some horses don't go well in more open surroundings where they've got to look into the distance because they turn their binocular vision on and they seem to pinpoint things in the distance. And as soon as they pinpoint things in the distance, they're not really processing the little things that are around them. Whereas in the forest, they can't see that far because there's so much stimulant close to them. It brings their thoughts back to being only so many metres in front of them. So I find that sort of down makes them cautious and just thoughtful, whereas out in the open, they sometimes lock onto a tree line over there or something happening way in the distance, and that obviously pulls their thoughts further away from their feet, so they feel faster and more anxious. That's one reason why a lot of times horses will settle down in the forest more than they will out in the open country, and that maybe the arena's more open. Maybe the horse has had at some stage a fair bit of hustle and bustle in an arena. I don't know the full history, so they get a bit anxious in the arena and then they go out and trail, and that's where the person used to just sit and talk to their friends and go, oh, you're out on a cool trail ride and la-di-da. But in the arena, it might have got hammered a bit, because sometimes
Pressure's
people
on.
sometimes people tend to do all the hammering in the arena and then they just relax and go on a trail ride. So that could be it too. There could be many reasons, but I think the first thing I'd think about more is the long vision versus the short vision. When I was in Glen Innes breaking in horses versus when I moved to Mudgee, I thought I'd got better in my horse training, and I thought when I moved to Mudgee, I found, oh, geez, it seems harder. And I realised that we had the perfect property in Glen Innes to take a young horse into the forest, get it to soften, get its short vision back, and get it stepping over logs, and then ride it out into the open, and then bring it back into the forest until on the third or fourth day you're riding out through the open country, no problems at all. Whereas in Mudgee, it seemed like we were sort of long heels all the way back to the yards where the horse would look down and see the other horses down in the paddock way over there, and it was kind of a little bit harder to distract them and get their thoughts back to you when there was so much so far there was so far to look, and it was just so the environment can be a great trainer for horses if you use it wisely, in your training of young horses.
We'll go to the last question for this session. It's from Carla from Germany. We've gone all the way around the world in this. How can I help my horse when trailering somewhere to wait quietly in the trailer? She wants to know. Currently, they have to arrive and get off or load up and leave, both very easily, but waiting 5 minutes or more results in aggressive pawing and slamming into the butt breeching bar, in general throwing a fit.
Okay, so some horses get to a stage in floats that they're really stressed, trailers, floats, and it's just like a switch. It's just like a switch on them, and it is a difficult when they're like that. But just yesterday, I worked with a horse much the same. He was an ex racing pacer horse who's been started for a young girl in the saddle, and he's a lovely horse when you get on him. He's a very nice horse, but very frightened around the float, and he starts to bang like that as soon as you sort of get in the float. But what I noticed with him is I went out and I worked on him. He still had a disconnect in leading, and there was still certain worries around people that he wasn't very comfortable with. So what I did with him, and this is part of I get them so comfortable in leading and trusting that leading that you can sort of move their feet in micro steps and loose steps, that they're processing every part of the environment that they're walking into softly with their feet. And then he stood in the float a lot better and a lot calmer for a lot longer once we loaded him in the right mindset, and that's a tricky one. But if you can get that feel in your hand that they're really listening nicely and their mind's, in a nice space, then you can lead them in, let them stand for sort of just a little bit, then lead them out and increase the time that they're in there. But if you just try and do graded exposure when they're not in a good mindset, it's kind of like you're wasting your time. The other thing I'd look at in general all the time with that particular horse is it a horse that's easy to interrupt any time of the day when it's tied up, when you're with it, or is it one of those horses that starts to get a little bit impulsive and, what are those horses doing over there? And you've left me tied up here for a bit, I might start to paw the ground a bit. Is it one of those sort of impulsive horses that lack caution? And if it is one of those horses, you might find there's other areas that you're going to constantly be saying, hey, gee, I notice you can only go so many seconds when I'm sitting on you before you start to fidget. I'm going to interrupt your thought. I need to improve that. I need to get you to be more cautious, be more aware of her boundaries, and start to be in a mindset that can actually be present and still and idle for longer without suddenly pinging off over there or pinging off over here. So in general, you look at the horse and look how well and how quiet it is. Now, quiet isn't the horse just standing there looking dull. If it's one of those horses, what's happening is getting spiked when it goes in the float, but because it's dull and it's not processing anything, it's just shutting down and looking quiet. It's not actually doing anything in the real world. It's just hiding away in a turtle shell. But when it goes in the float, suddenly it's in Afghanistan and it's like, oh, it's like in a war zone sort of thing. So that could be happening as well. So either the horse is too impulsive, doesn't centre well, or it's shutting out a bit and it's very quiet in the normal environment and then it's blowing up. So if it was that type of horse, you'd have to wake it up in a normal environment and say, hey, I need you more aware, I need you more curious, cautious. If you add curiosity, you always have to add caution to it, because you can't have curiosity without caution, because that goes back to that impulsive horse. And yeah, just in general, really look at that in the horse. And all of the horses that I see that get real stompy in a float, there's lots of other little things I can help them with outside the float in their mindset that's not quite right. And then, at the end of the day, one of those claustrophobic horses, you have to have them super soft, super centered, good mindset before you think about getting them on that float. Otherwise, it is a constant battle. It's a tough thing.
So it's not necessarily about the float at all. It could be a whole load of other issues that if you can help with, will help when they get in the float.
Yeah. There's little things that we might overlook sometimes that we just miss. And yeah, so, but as I say to everyone, the right amount of caution and curiosity in a horse, if you look at one of those horses that has the right mix, they're just a soft, centered horse. They think about everything they do. They process well. They process as they're going into floats. They're processing not only the what's around them, but what's underneath them. They have soft footfall. They're cautious, and yeah.
So what I'm getting from you then, and I guess it's relevant for everyone that's listening, if we would just sum up some piece of advice that would just stay with them over the Christmas holidays until we're back again next year, it would be break it down. Whatever issue you're having with your horse, just break it down. Try and isolate an area that's causing a block or an anxiety or a hesitation, and work on improving how your horse feels about that.
Yep, for sure.
And it's all on Mark Langley Horsemanship Online. If you're interested in training effectively and positively, check it out. There is just a 7-day free trial. So we'll be back next year answering more questions from the MLH Online members. Until then, we'd like to thank you very much for all of our listeners out there. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for supporting us, and stay safe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny.
See you next year.
See you next year.